Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host, with another marvelous video. Darth Maul has evolved into one of Star Wars' most recognizable villains since his appearance in the iconic movie The Phantom Menace, but his story goes well beyond that one feature. Darth Maul's tale is told from his nefarious roots to his final ultimate fight. Maul was originally a Dathomirian Zabrak man who rose to prominence as a criminal lord during the rule of the autocratic Galactic Empire. When he was Darth Sidious's apprentice and therefore was also a Dark Lord of the Wicked Sith, he came to be known by the name Darth Maul. Darth Maul, who has been schooled in the teachings of the Force, was a fearsome warrior with a dark side and devastating talents in lightsaber warfare. In addition, despite losing his position in the legions of the Sith, he was a cunning thinker who orchestrated his return to power. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Would love the opportunity to take control of your operation.
How did he turn into a sinister villain? Darth Maul, who was the son of the Mother Talzin on the land of Dathomir, was born in the year 54 BBY. He was originally a Night Brother and also had two blood brothers, Savage and Fedel Opress, as he was a Dathomirian Zabrak male. Maul later claimed that he used to have a real name but had somehow long ago lost it. Talzin offered the Zabrak newborns their first tattoos before their first birthday. Maul struggled with profound inner rage as a youngster, ever since he lived in the caves as a very young boy. Maul grew up in a home in a village named Night Brother with one of his brothers, frequently needing to look after his smaller, weaker brother owing to Talzin's constant absence with the Night Sisters. As a result of his Force sensitivity, he always felt a bond with the outdoors and the woodland outside their house as a child. Mother Talzin had become an associate of Darth Sidious, who was the Dark Lord of the evil Sith. When he was still a young child, the two creatures traded secrets of the dark side arcana as well as Night Sister magics. When Sidious came to see Talzin, Maul constantly hid in his chamber, terrified of the tyrant and concerned about Talzin's growing affection for him. However, Sidious was drawn to Maul's battle with fury. Sidious eventually ordered Talzin to hand up Maul to one of the keepers, claiming not to honor his commitment to appoint her as his apprentice. Maul stormed into the woodland, overhearing the exchange from behind his door, and she grudgingly accepted. When he came back the next day, a Night Brother grabbed him and placed him in a pit, denying him the opportunity to say farewell to his very own mother. Maul was subjected to months of unrelenting domestic violence, all engineered by Sidious as nothing more than a test. He stayed with his own Night Brother keeper's two children, who beat him till he couldn't get up every so often during the days and kept him starving by only giving him the leftovers his brothers did not eat. This began to skew Maul's perspective, and his affection for his mother morphed into anger and loathing for abandoning him, just as Sidious had intended. His animosity began to surface via the dark side, and he continued to practice utilizing the dark side of the powerful Force whenever he could. Finally, the two brothers ceased beating him after noticing that their acts of aggression were no longer hurting him. Eventually, reports spread that a man would be arriving soon for the selection in order to gain a warrior trainee, and all of the Night Brother youths braced themselves for it. When the day came, Maul's keeper denied and did not allow him to join, but he utilized the dark side to burst down his barred door and follow nonetheless. Maul discovered the guest was, in fact, Sidious in the selection arena. In a fit of rage, he utilized the dark side of the legendary Force to force choke two of the brothers, followed by the keeper, all right in front of Talzin as well as Sidious. Sidious, who was overjoyed with Maul's improvement and promise, crowned Maul the champion and his newest apprentice, much to Talzin's chagrin. Sidious kidnapped Maul and fled Dathomir, leaving Talzin vowing to reclaim her stolen son and exact revenge on Sidious. Shortly after this, she proceeded to have a third son, who was named Savage, and Savage unintentionally assumed Maul's position in caring for Farrell, entirely ignorant that he has yet another surviving sibling. Maul studied as a deadly Sith apprentice, a Sith warrior, as well as a Sith assassin under Sidious's supervision, and was finally awarded the title of the powerful Darth Maul. Darth Maul was groomed for years to be a Sith weapon. He trained to be an acrobatic fighter, unyielding against his adversaries, and learned to wield a dual-bladed, supremely powerful and unique lightsaber, eventually making his own from blueprints handed to him by his instructor. Sidious had buried the blueprints in a forgotten door to the Sith archives. Maul made his lightsaber from stolen or otherwise obtained parts. While sitting in the darkness at the time before the peak of Naboo, he reflected on the amount of anguish and sweat that had been poured into the creation of his weapon. However, the vast bulk of the blood shared in the manufacture of the weaponry was not his. Maul practiced using Marksman H training remotes throughout his lightsaber training. Through droid training, he also learned martial arts. During his apprenticeship, Sidious led Maul to the land of Malachor to observe a historic fight between the Sith and the legendary and powerful forces of good, the Jedi, that took place there. Maul harnessed his fury, allowing it to boil inside him, and began to transform it into hatred under the guidance of his master. Sidious ordered Maul to inhale in the remains of deceased Sith warriors who were killed when a historic weapon was ignited in the planet Sith temple. Maul saw images of Sith Order members being killed by the Jedi while inhaling in this ash. As he sensed the slaughter of his Sith comrades, he experienced the slash of saber after saber. Maul's Sith upbringing made him yearn for vengeance against the good Jedi Order who had crushed the Sith centuries before. Darth Maul thought that he and his master could kill the Jedi and return the Sith to cosmic supremacy. Maul's animosity toward the Jedi, on the other hand, was more personal. He was enraged when he discovered the Jedi never had come for him as a youngster. Maul didn't know if they thought he was worthless or just disregarded him, and their disregard increased his wrath, and he counted down the days until the time he could exact his retribution. He was dissatisfied with his master's plans, resenting the anguish and misery he felt as he awaited this chance to wreak havoc on the world that had so deeply wounded him.
Darth Maul. He will find your lost.
Some of Darth Maul's most iconic story arcs. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Darth Maul, who is played by Ray Parker in the movie, which is his first major appearance on screen, is sent by his lord Darth Sidious, who is played by Ian McDermott, to abduct the 14-year-old Queen Padme Amidala, who is played by Natalie Portman. She is the Queen of Naboo, and Sidious wishes to compel her to sign an agreement that would legitimize the Trade Federation's takeover of the planet. Maul follows her vessel to Tatooine, wherein he briefly battles a Jedi Master named Qui-Gon Jinn, who is played by Liam Neeson, who had been tasked with protecting the Queen. Qui-Gon determines that Maul is actually a Sith Lord and alerts the Jedi Council of the Sith's reappearance on Coruscant. Maul fights Qui-Gon and his student ObiWan Kenobi, who is played by Ewan McGregor in the film's conclusion. He kills Qui-Gon and knocks Obi-Wan into a pit, but Kenobi launches himself quickly out of the trench and uses Qui-Gon's lightsaber to slice into Maul, hurling the two halves of his body down the shaft. Darth Maul's first fight with a Jedi. Darth Maul became dissatisfied with his training as Darth Sidious's apprentice a few years after it started. He craved a showdown with the Jedi. Maul adored hunting wild creatures and chasing the Jedi named Kat Kin, as well as her Padawan, who was named Bed and Jace, inside the shadows of Coruscant. Maul went on a trip to the swampy planet of Tuan Keti to chase Rathtars while waiting for instructions from Darth Sidious. He'd previously hired a party of large game hunters to frighten the Rathtar out of their place of hiding as he observed covertly from behind a tree. He calmed his thoughts and summoned the Force, detecting the presence of the animals close. When a Rathtar ambushed the hunters, Maul sprang atop it and speared it, effectively killing it. Maul, on the other hand, had detected the approach of a few other Rathtar assaulting him from behind and realized that they were actually pack hunters. Maul had longed to use his powerful lightsaber, but he decided not to, since the hunters would recognize his Sith nature. Maul chopped off the creature's limbs one by one before killing the second Rathtar with a branch. After completing his training, he returned to Coruscant. Maul mused on the Rathtar's viciousness, brutality, and freedom while hunting them. In contrast to himself, the Rathtars he chased had no master. Sidious told Maul to stay away from the Jedi and not approach them before his preparations were complete. While praising Maul for his zeal for revenge, Sidious did not even want Maul to reveal himself until the perfect moment. Sidious scared Maul with the threat of death if he didn't stop putting himself at danger of being discovered. Sidious ordered Maul to the Kellogg's planetary system to execute pirates who were meddling with the work of the Trade Federation in an attempt to quench Maul's bloodlust. Maul traveled to Kellogg's and eliminated the pirates who had already captured Trade Federation members. A pirate pleaded for his life in return for information, mistaking Maul for a Jedi. Maul was informed by the pirate that Drexus, who was from the Drexus cartel, had seized the Padawan of a Jedi who would be sold off to the winning bidder. Maul eliminated the surviving pirates in addition to the Trade Federation members who had been captured and began his hunt for the Padawan. Maul enlisted the help of a gang of bounty hunters who were named Aura Singh, Cad Bane, True Triltek, and Vordelio, and headed to the land of Nar Shaddaa to determine the exact location of Drexus's auction. After being mistaken for being a Jedi, Maul engaged in a bar brawl. During the struggle, he was blinded by Quarren mobster Dirty Calgaries, whom Maul swiftly murdered and was nearly cornered when Singh, Bane, and Vordelio intervened. Bane alerted Maul to the fact that the group of bounty hunters he was with had obtained an invite to Drexus's auction. The group of bounty hunters had assassinated the Hadrex gang before proceeding to capture their spacecraft as well as the protocol droid FEB-3. Maul and True Triltek tormented FEB-3 until the auction location was revealed to them. Maul, as well as the bounty hunters, subsequently flew on the Hadrex gang spacecraft to the location of a space station which was in the Drazkel planetary system to take part in the auction. Drexus informed those present that the Jedi's Padawan, who was a Twi'lek named Eldrick Kaitis, had already been discovered aboard a crashed Republic cargo vessel that had been assaulted by pirates. While Drexus was greeting her visitors, Maul investigated the space station where he was present and discovered Kaitis inside a holding cell. Drexus found Maul prowling about the station while looking for Kaitis, and Maul offered a bogus name, Ceres Madreth, of the Hadrex Consortium, in order to fool Drexus. Maul then confirmed with Bane as well as the other bounty hunters with him to devise a safe escape route and a backup plan. Maul went back to the auction and let the Mugen named G. Kra take Kaitis. After that, Maul and his bounty hunters met G. Kra and all of his crew aboard their ship. They slaughtered Kra and his entire crew there. Maul ordered Bane to launch the spacecraft into space and revealed to Kaitis the fact that he was actually a Sith. Drexus, on the other hand, had put an explosive aboard the shuttle, forcing it to crash land atop Drazkel's moon. Kaitis, Maul and his companions, the bounty hunters, survived the collision on the moon's surface. Maul and his bounty hunters split apart when they realized Drexus was sending his ships after them. Kaitis and Maul would lead the hunters away, while Singh, Bane, and Vordelio would seize a ship from them. Maul handed Kaitis her lightsaber as they were ambushed by hunters, and the two of them battled the hunters together. Kaitis and Maul prepared to combat each other after beating the hunters. Both of them proved to be a good complement for one another. Initially, Kaitis wielded her lightsaber to induce a landslide, burying Maul. Maul rose up and slashed her in the chest as she was about to actually go ahead and kill him. He then demolished FEB-3 and was taken by Bane and the remaining bounty hunters on a hijacked Flare Star-class shuttle. They were rewarded, and Maul was dropped off at Zev's hideaway. He killed Drexus there to maintain the Sith's concealment. He then went back to Coruscant to see Lord Sidious. His master was aware that he had murdered the young Jedi's Padawan, but he delighted his master by informing him that his thirst for Jedi remained unsatisfied.
You once liberated me from my imprisonment by Sidious and...
The Clone Wars. Darth Maul is shown in Season 3 to have been part of the Night Brothers tribe from the planet of Dathomir. Mother Talzin, the head of the wicked Night Sister witch clan and Maul's birth mother, dispatches her other child, Savage Opress, to look for Maul, who had been living on the Outer Ring since he was cut in two and assumed slain by Obi-Wan Kenobi more than a decade ago. Savage discovers Maul on the garbage planet named Lotho Minor in Season 4. Maul, who has been abandoned there and driven crazy, uses the Force to create a spider-like device to replace his missing legs. Savage returns Maul to Dathomir, whereupon Talzin uses Night Sister witchcraft to restore his consciousness and equip him with cybernetic legs. Maul embarks on a killing rampage to bait and catch Obi-Wan with the help of Savage, but Asajj Ventress rushes to Obi-Wan's rescue and enables him to escape. In the 5th season, Maul hires Savage as his disciple and begins to construct his own crime syndicate. The two journey to Florum in order to take the area of Weequay pirates headed by Hondo Ohnaka. The Jedi hunt them down and Maul battles Obi-Wan, while Savage battles and murders Adi Gallia. Obi-Wan and Hondo's crew collaborate to compel the brothers to depart in an escape vehicle. Deathwatch, a Mandalorian terrorist gang, discovers Maul and Savage drifting in dead space days later. Maul teams up with their commander, Pre Vizsla, to assume charge of Mandalore and get revenge on Obi-Wan. They assemble the Black Sun, Hutt clan, as well as the Pike Syndicate to form the Shadow Collective, a criminal syndicate. Maul orchestrates Vizsla's ascension to power by commanding the criminal families to assault Mandalore, enabling the Death Watch to apprehend them and earn public support. Vizsla, on the other hand, betrays and imprisons Savage and Maul, despite the fact that they quickly escape, and the former confronts Vizsla into a battle for Mandalore's leadership. Maul overwhelms Vizsla, killing him using his very own Darksaber, and essentially takes over Mandalore, installing the disgraced ex-Prime Minister named Almec, who Satine had incarcerated for corruption as a puppet leader. However, a faction of the Death Watch, commanded by Bo-Katan Kryze, refuses to accept a foreigner as their commander and flees to plot a revolution. Maul subsequently devises an ambush for Obi-Wan, anticipating that Satine will seek aid from the Jedi Master due to their romantic history. When Obi-Wan lands in Mandalore, he's promptly apprehended and forced to see Maul execute Satine. Obi-Wan is subsequently set free by Bo-Katan's Death Watch group. Meanwhile, Darth Sidious hears of Maul's existence and the power he has amassed, and, fearful that his former student may challenge him, rushes to Mandalore to resolve the situation. After a lightsaber combat with Savage and Maul, Sidious effortlessly kills the latter, aggravating Maul, who temporarily holds his own very well against Sidious before being vanquished. Sidious continues to torment Maul using Force lightning, but allows him to live, since he has other plans for him. In the 7th and last season, following the developments of the graphic novel Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir, Darth Maul even heads the Shadow Collective, now comprised of the Black Sun, Crimson Dawn, and the Pike Syndicate, and rules over Mandalore until Bo-Katan joins the Galactic Republic's assistance in deposing him. When Maul confesses that Ahsoka's previous master, Anakin Skywalker, would be converted to the dark side because of Sidious, and that he actually had planned to murder Anakin to avoid this from occurring, Ahsoka fights Maul in a lightsaber battle, which ends only with the latter's capture. Appearance in Twin Suns. Maul kidnaps the Ghost's crew and threatens to murder them until and unless Ezra and Kanan bring both the Sith as well as the Jedi holocrons to him in the 3rd season. Maul transports the team to a distant Outer Rim location where he awaits the arrival of Ezra and Kanan. He entices Kanan far from Ezra and attempts to kill him. Following that, Maul and Ezra riskily join the holocrons, letting them to view visions of their wishes. Ezra sees pictures of a means to defeat the Sith, including 2 sons, while Maul sees his own vision. Kanan urges Ezra to turn aside before he views a great deal of the wicked dark side, but Maul instructs him to disregard Kanan and continue watching. Ezra takes his master's advice and destroys the link, causing a massive explosion. In the pandemonium, Maul flees, exclaiming, "He lives." Maul returns after discovering the rebels' hidden base. He informs Ezra that when the link was disrupted, they only got snippets and fragments of each other's vision. Maul devised another means to retrieve the knowledge he needed just after all the holocrons were destroyed. He goes to Dathomir along with Ezra and reconstructs a Night Sister ritual to briefly combine his and Ezra's brains, which causes them to discover they are both searching for Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Night Sister spirits, however, demand a sacrifice in exchange for the supplied answers and take control of Sabine Wren and Kanan when they come to rescue Ezra. After fleeing from them, Maul makes Ezra one more offer of becoming his apprentice and then abandons him to attempt to save his comrades. Maul eventually follows Obi-Wan down to a location named Tatooine, but becomes lost in the desert and decides to utilize Ezra to draw his old enemy out of hiding in the Twin Suns episode. His plot succeeds in the end because he monitors Ezra's movements, who went to find and alert Obi-Wan of Maul's intentions until he is freed by the powerful Jedi Master. As Obi-Wan leads Ezra away, Maul confronts his old foe, rapidly deducing that he not only is in hiding, but also protecting someone. Obi-Wan lights his lightsaber and begins to combat Maul, who is quickly destroyed in a few blows, realizing he cannot let Maul leave with this information. Maul asks Obi-Wan as he lies dying in his arms if the individual he is safeguarding is the Chosen One. Obi-Wan confirms that he is. Maul says that this individual, or the Chosen One, will go on to avenge them before dying. Leading Crimson Dawn. Maul had returned to Dathomir sometime after his retreat during the Purge, wherein he took up residency and became the Dark Commander of Crimson Dawn, employing Dryden Voss as his frontman. Maul launched a hunt for an old Sith holocron while leading Crimson Dawn. He adopted a stealth strategy while looking, wearing a hooded cloak to conceal his appearance and exchanging his unique double-bladed lightsaber for another one, to which he affixed a wooden portion to give it the look of a staff. Following Voss's death in 10 BBY, Maul was approached by his subordinate Kira, who told him that Voss had indeed been deceived and assassinated by Tobias Beckett and his colleagues before his cargo of coaxium was taken while it was being processed on the barren planet named Savarine. Irritated, Maul summoned Kira to Dathomir and told him that the two of them would determine how to proceed with Beckett and all of the remaining traitors. He then energized his brand new lightsaber and informed Kira that the two of them would be working more closely from now on, elevating her to the deceased Voss's status. Maul educated Kira all about the Sith Order, exposing the rule of two to her through his mutterings, and revealed to her that the Galactic Emperor named Sheev Palpatine was truly the immensely powerful Dark Lord of the Sith, identified by the name Darth Sidious, and revealing that the Imperial warrior Darth Vader was actually his Sith student. Maul revealed to her about his intention to utilize Crimson Dawn to bring down the Empire. He also prepared Kira to confront the Sith.
Not as your brother, but as your master.
Resurfacing in the galaxy. After Savage Opress restored his mind, Maul set out to exact revenge on Kenobi for beating him on Naboo and followed the now Jedi High Councilman to Raydonia by slaying people in order to draw Kenobi out. Kenobi was kidnapped by Maul and Opress, but he was saved by Asajj Ventress, who was a previous disciple of Darth Tyrannus, as well as the Dathomir Witch who previously commanded Opress. For the very first time in almost a decade, Kenobi and Maul fought a lightsaber duel, and Maul incited Kenobi's rage by telling him about how he murdered Qui-Gon Jinn. As a result, Kenobi became overwhelmed and determined that he and Ventress should flee the ship. Despite the fact that Kenobi had fled, Maul was aware that the dynamic Jedi would eventually begin following him, which would serve him into Maul's hands in his drive for vengeance. After these events, Maul met a kid with whom he discussed his comeback to galactic politics, assuring the boy that he would soon exact his vengeance and reveal the Jedi as a fake organization. The brothers went on a rampage throughout the galaxy, eventually arriving at the location of the Cyblock transfer station inside the Cyblock system. They uncovered a credit coffer packed to the brim after beating the station's guardians. By disarming his brother, Maul displayed his martial supremacy, winning the latter's respect. Maul refers to himself as his brother, Opress's master from then on, following the usual Sith's rule of two relationship. After taking the goods from the space outpost, the two brothers proceeded to Florim and paid a group of pirates to join them. Although several joined, others challenged Opress and Maul's motivations and were slaughtered as a result, while Hondo Ohnaka, who was the pirate commander, was compelled to watch. The brothers eventually came up against Kenobi, as well as Adi Gallia, a fellow Jedi High Council member who had followed them down. After Gallia was killed in a duel, Kenobi enticed the brothers inside the pirate base, whereupon they continued their combat in an isolated tunnel. When Opress's arm was severed, Maul then used the Force to force Kenobi through the tunnel, creating a cave-in before commanding a withdrawal. He also found that Ohnaka's soldiers had reunited with the rogue pirates, and that Maul's hired squad had turned against him. The brothers quickly escaped, but the effort lost Maul one of his signature mechanical legs. They narrowly fled the sinking ship after a member of Ohnaka's pirates took out its motors with a missile launcher. As a result, Hondo assumed that Opress and Maul were destroyed in the collision. However, Kenobi suspected differently. Darth Maul, son of Dathomir. This graphic novel was created by Dark Horse Comics based on the screenplays and concept art of an unpublished 4-episode narrative arc planned for the Clone Wars 7th season. The happenings of the comic take place after Maul's humiliation at the hands of Darth Sidious in the season 5 of the TV series, but before his eventual reappearance in the 7th season. Sidious transports Maul to a separatist jail after defeating him and murdering his brother, who is named Savage Opress, where Count Dooku torments him for information on the Shadow Collective. Prime Minister Almec organizes Maul's escape, after which the latter returns to Zanbar to lead the Death Watch troops. He is pursued by General Grievous and his droids, who fight alongside Maul and all the Mandalorians. Despite putting up a valiant battle, Maul and his henchmen are eventually defeated by the droids. Maul rushes through into the droid ranks and confronts Grievous, but is overwhelmed and forced to escape. Maul then consults with Mother Talzin, going on to devise a plan to entice Sidious by kidnapping Dooku and Grievous. The plan succeeds, and Talzin is then able to go back to her corporeal form, but she loses herself in order to save Maul. Despite the fact that Maul escapes with a group of faithful Mandalorians and the Shadow Collective has split as a result of the war with Sidious, since the Pikes, Hutts, and Black Sun have all deserted Maul.
I was apprenticed to the most powerful being in the galaxy once.
How is the Sith Lord alive in the Clone Wars? Maul comes to the center of Star Wars in Season 7 of the Clone Wars, clashing with a teenage hero named Ahsoka Tano on the planet of Mandalore and subsequently assisting her and Rex in escaping Order 66. Fans will enjoy Maul's reappearance in the Clone Wars final arc, especially his showdowns in the series, which were done by original Maul star Ray Park himself using the miracle of motion capture. Even if we enjoyed seeing Maul again, you might just be wondering how he's still living in the Clone Wars after already being severed in two and rolling down a power shaft in the movie The Phantom Menace. The explanation may be discovered much earlier there in the Clone Wars. Following the incidents of The Phantom Menace, fans should watch the Clone Wars 3rd season, specifically the episode named Brothers, which follows Maul's long-lost brother, the Dathomirian Night Brother Savage Opress, whose name is actually that absurdly extra, on a journey to find the former Sith Lord. His quest takes him to Lothor Minor, a junkyard planet in which Maul has been dwelling as a half-crazed recluse with robotic spider legs he made out of rubbish. It is an extremely cool and interesting plot twist. How did Maul endure his fall on the planet of Naboo in the very first place? It's claimed that his sheer desire to live and dark side skills enabled him to live as a mangled torso, clutching an air duct at the very last second as he dropped. Maul wound up in a garbage receptacle, which was later dumped on Lothor Minor. After being united with his brother Savage, the two siblings journey to their home planet of Dathomir to confer with Mother Talzin, who is the matriarch of their Dathomirian tribe. Mother Talzin utilized her magical talents to install Maul with brand new cybernetic legs and restore his sanity. The Season 3 finale, Revenge, and Season 4 premiere Revival center on Maul leading Obi-Wan Kenobi into something like a trap after he's been restored and is eager to reclaim what he has lost. In reality, throughout the rest of his tenure on the Clone Wars, Darth Maul has only two separate motivations: take revenge on the Jedi who sliced him in two halves in The Phantom Menace, and return to Darth Sidious's side and his rebirth as a Sith Lord. But if there's one constant thread running across all of Maul's appearances in the movies, the Clone Wars and Rebels, it's his inability to obtain the things he most desires. While Maul is able to steal things from Obi-Wan, including people like Qui-Gon Jinn, and later even Duchess Satine Kryze, an Obi-Wan acquaintance and Mandalore ruler who Maul kills during his takeover of the planet, he is never able to murder the Jedi Master. In actuality, Maul is eventually defeated in the Rebels' installment Twin Sons during his final confrontation with Obi-Wan on the land of Tatooine. Obi-Wan holds Maul in his arms as he eventually dies.
Yes, we shall start with revenge.
What are some of the worst things that he did? Maul eventually evolves into one of Star Wars' more nuanced adversaries, beginning as a quiet Sith assassin before becoming a wild card bound to neither the Sith nor the Jedi, only out for his own selfish desires, his own supremacy, and ultimately his own retribution. Despite his fascinating personality, dark past, and rare likable moments, Maul is also one of the deadliest adversaries, personally slaughtering hundreds of individuals in his time and bringing great personal pain to individual heroes for a number of reasons. Other antagonists in Star Wars may be stronger or terrible, but when it comes to turning the knife, Maul may be the best at it. Threatening Luke, who was a child on Tatooine. When Maul loses everything in Star Wars The Clone Wars, as well as Star Wars Rebels, and all of his machinations fail, he turns his attention to vengeance. Lashing out in classic Darksider fashion, he embarks on a mission to look for Obi-Wan Kenobi and finally put an end to their ancient animosity. When Maul discovers Obi-Wan on the planet Tatooine, he spends some time taunting him about his destiny. As he does so, he suspects that Obi-Wan is on Tatooine to defend someone rather than something. Although he does not explicitly state it, there seems to be an implicit threat in the information that eventually provokes Obi-Wan into a battle. Deems Savage as unworthy. Maul's strong attachment to his family is a characteristic worth sympathizing with. He has a strong affinity towards his mother, the matriarchal ruler Mother Talzin, and also his brother Savage Opress. However, simply processing this attachment does not imply being able to communicate it well, and as a matter of fact, he tries to hide his emotions. When Maul regains consciousness, he tells Savage that he actually is the master and Savage is the student, defeating him in a brief battle to demonstrate his point. Maul would make Savage feel disappointed in comparison by referring to him as apprentice from that point on. Even as he's dying, Savage laments the fact that he is not like Maul. One of Maul's biggest regrets is the fact that Savage dies, thinking Maul didn't love him. To get ObiWan's attention, he murders innocent people. When Maul is apprehended by Oppress and regains his sanity due to his mother Talzin, one of his primary concerns is to get revenge on Obi-Wan Kenobi for wounding him in the very first place. Rather than confronting the wise Jedi Master, he entices Obi-Wan to attack him. Maul and Oppress proceed to Raydonia to do so, and Maul approaches Obi-Wan to reveal to him that he has been holding innocent villagers captive. He warns Obi-Wan and says that if he didn't come face to face with him, he would kill many more people. To emphasize his argument, he decapitates multiple individuals in a single swipe, murdering them just for the sake of making a point. Kanan's betrayal and blindness. When Ezra discovers Maul on the planet of Malachor and wants to form an alliance with him, both Ahsoka Tano and Kanan Jarrus are not pleased, knowing him personally or by reputation. However, the presence of the three Inquisitors as well as the menace of Darth Vader necessitates collaboration. When the path to the legendary Sith holocron becomes plain, Maul deserts the Jedi. His unexpected strike takes them both by surprise and he blinds Jarrus using a lightsaber to his eyes. Despite the fact that his attempt would be a failure, Jarrus would remain vulnerable to the brutal onslaught. Attempts to convert Ezra covertly to the dark side. While Darth Maul's darkest moments saw him wreaking devastation with his blade, he was also skilled at more subtle manipulation. He happens to encounter young Ezra and begins delivering the standard dark side sales pitch. Behaving forcefully and mercilessly is the best way to defend yourself and those you care about. But unlike Darth Sidious, who used this similar reasoning to persuade a young Anakin to execute an unarmed man, Maul is not able to drag Ezra all the way and over the edge. Nonetheless, it's evident that his comments have had an influence on the new apprentice, and this is the ultimate strength of the Sith, the ability to draw out the worst in people. That and Force lightning, at the very least.
And if you die, you will die as warriors.
How did he live on in the Star Wars canon? The authors of The Clone Wars devoted numerous episodes on Maul's tragic second attempt at gaining dominance in the cosmos, which was motivated by vengeance against the Jedi. First, Maul invited Obi-Wan Kenobi to just a rematch. He didn't win, so he recruited some bandits and tried again. He didn't win that battle either, and Savage Oppress suffered a broken arm and Maul took further leg injury. Following their escape, the two Zabraks were apprehended by Death Watch, a Mandalorian renegade faction. After forging a coalition against the powerful Jedi, Maul receives a brand new pair of humanoid legs. Maul was a continuous presence and occasional menace on the Clone Wars during the 5th and 4th seasons. He ultimately took control of Death Watch and used their variation of a lightsaber, which is the dark saber, to take seize of Mandalore and assassinate the planet's pacifist leader, Duchess Satine, who really appeared to be Obi-Wan Kenobi's romantic interest at the time. Although Kenobi did not abandon the Jedi Order for romance, he did really have to watch his love die because he sliced Maul in two on the X-axis rather than the Y-axis. Taking over Mandalore needed a small contingent and some political clout in the cosmos, so Maul and Oppress butchered most of the Black Sun's governors and took control, getting the Pike Syndicate to swear loyalty to them simply by trying to overtake the Black Sun, and eventually, after assassinating a Hutt, getting Jabba to swear the Hutt criminal family's allegiance to the powerful group, which Maul named the Shadow Collective. He was one of the key criminal forces in the Star Wars world by the time he ruled Mandalore with Death Watch. Maul attempted to take over Darth Sidious in order to become the genuine Sith Lord of the galaxy, but the coup failed despite a dramatic Force combat. This was Maul's last narrative arc on the Clone Wars, but it wasn't the end of him. Palpatine retained Maul and kept him alive for unknown reasons, and then after Cartoon Network cancelled the Clone Wars, the anticipated Darth Maul Coda was made into a 4-issue graphic novel series titled Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir. Maul reappeared in the Clone Wars' last arc, The Siege of Mandalore, and mild spoilers for the 10th episode, The Phantom Apprentice. He appears primarily to face Ahsoka Tano with the terrible truth of what awaits the Jedi. The incident takes place during the happenings of Revenge of the Sith, and regardless what happened to Maul in the finale episode, we know he's not done being threatening. Maul returns to the Star Wars universe in the second season conclusion of Star Wars Rebels, The Twilight of the Apprentice. He appears on the planet Malachor, where there is a Sith temple that handles an extremely powerful dark side arsenal. When Ezra encounters Maul, he has renounced his ambitions to become a Sith Lord, instead demanding vengeance both against the Sith as well as the Jedi for, well, We guess his entire existence at this point. Maul's Rebel saber might be a revised form of the weaponry used by Darth Vader's personal Jedi hunters, the Inquisitors, who also utilized double-bladed red sabers. This implies Maul beat an Inquisitor and took their equipment. Inquisitor sabers feature a circular running track around the exterior of the lightsaber handle that enables the blades to revolve like helicopter blades and even fly for small distances. Maul likely modified one of these by extending the spinning blade rail out to make a grip guard. The third season of Star Wars Rebels spent a significant number of episodes to giving Maul a suitable conclusion as he and Ezra returned to Dathomir, which is now an uninhabited planet, to find that the solution to destroying the Sith lay on Tatooine along with ObiWan Kenobi. The entire story arc leads up to a climactic clash between Kenobi and Maul, which is one of the clearest illustrations of how important the animatronic Star Wars episodes can be. But 2 years prior to when Luke Skywalker shoots up the Death Star, Maul dies in the arms of his Jedi opponent. The Maul, seen in Solo, a Star Wars story, looks to be a Maul attempting to reclaim control of the dark underworld in Dathomir where no one lives. Finally, Maul could merely be an unseen mover in any future Kira storylines if Han Solo's lover crosses routes with the smuggler again, or Maul could appear as a main antagonist in a Solo sequel. However, Maul has indeed been up to too many things since he was severed in Naboo. What percentage of it would need to be made clear to non-fans?
Jedi, I have been waiting for you.
What made Darth Maul so dangerous? Maul was trained as Darth Sidious's apprentice to be a living Sith weapon, one that would aid Sidious in the ruination of the Jedi as well as the takeover of the galaxy. He was one of the Order's most lethal and well-trained Sith in history. He developed into a daredevil and a professionally trained Sith warrior, capable of relentlessly pursuing his enemies with his double-bladed lightsaber. Maul had indeed been trained in various forms of lightsaber battle. He put these abilities to the test for the very first time in his battle with Jedi trainee Eldra Kaitis. While the young Twi'lek held her own against the Sith for a while, Maul emerged victorious. Later, all through his duel with Jin and Kenobi on Naboo, he demonstrated his capacity to battle both the legendary Jedi Master as well as his apprentice on equal terms, as well as gain the upper hand on Kenobi after killing Jin. Even though Kenobi annihilated Maul, this was due in part to Maul's own arrogance and disregard for the defeated Jin's weapon. After emerging from exile, he outmaneuvered Kenobi in a multitude of encounters, including the battle over Raydonia, though their joust on Florum ended in a draw. Maul was an expert in hand-to-hand combat, which he frequently incorporated into his style of fighting. He demonstrated this most notably when he vanquished a trained and equipped Pre Vizsla, despite receiving little to no help from the Force. Maul also demonstrated considerable talent in Jar-Kai, attempting to hold his own against Kenobi and Jin and on Naboo at the same time before dividing them up. Maul showed the ability to use a walking cane as a club in combination with his connected blades, in addition to his double-bladed lightsaber. Banking clan droid guardians, pirates, Hutt clan forces, hordes of separatist combat droids, clone troopers and 4 of General Grievous's Magna Guards could all be destroyed by Maul. In contrast to the Inquisitorius, whose sabers could rotate, and General Grievous, for whom the split arms could spin with a sidearm in each hand, Maul could twirl a double-bladed weapon with only one hand. Maul was also an expert at using his lightsaber to deflect blaster bolts. Maul demonstrated to be very powerful with the Force, powerful enough to stay alive after being cut in half. In relation to his proficiency with a lightsaber, Maul simply prefers to utilize the Force for strategic purposes, such as chopping down trees to crush Rathars. Maul used a Force boost powerful enough just to blow Obi-Wan Kenobi over large distances and cause the passageway they were in to crumble during a scuffle on Florum. After suffering severe injuries that led to the destruction of one of his bioengineered legs, he was able to telepathically drag an Eta-class spaceship from a plateau. Maul was also talented in telepathy, particularly the mind probe method, as evidenced by his use of the strength on Hera to locate Kanan Jarrus's Jedi holocron and reveal his true identity. Maul was a skilled manipulator, as well as a military and political strategist, as evidenced by his ability to form the Shadow Collective in a short period of time and utilize it to conquer Mandalore. Maul was extremely agile and talented in hand-to-hand combat.
You once liberated me from my imprisonment by Sidious.
Conclusion: the Star Wars Comprehensive Universe always has worked in endorsement of the films, allowing stories and other mainstream press to have as much entertainment as they desire without significantly influencing the films. Maul's appearance in Solo, with aesthetic markers canonizing his various cameos over the years, marks the first time in Star Wars history that a key character's history has made the transition from cinema to the television features and back to the movies. Despite the fact that Maul's entire life has been carved into canon, there is still mystery surrounding him. Space available for him to play a larger role in the universe of Star Wars. A flashback to The Mandalorian Season 2, maybe. Ray Park is patiently awaiting the call. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.
Look what has become of you. A rat in the desert.